Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics. And John, Celtics take a 3-2 advantage, 2 at home. We talked about that the last show. Then they drop 2 on the road, I guess. And then they come back for Game 5 and defeat the Bucks at home. Marcus Smart makes a return. I think it seems to be a little bit earlier than anticipated. Certainly a much-needed hustle, definitely down the stretch. A really nice play when he was being absolutely mauled on the floor. Still finds a way to kick the ball out to Al Horford. That pretty much ices the game, but Jaylen Brown, I'll tell you, John, I didn't get to see much of it, and we'll get into that later, but Jaylen Brown really making that statement. Remember, just before the playoffs, we said, or you said, I said, I wouldn't give him up, the Kawhi talk, all of that, and really felt like he was going to be a scorer in the league. And then we said, well, you know, you challenged him a little bit, and you said, you know, Jaylen, you're going to have to be the guy who scores 25, 20 to 30 points a night, 25. I'm not sure you're the guy that can do that. And then here he is, just really putting on quite a postseason performance.
He has been everything they could ask for. I think he took a bit of a step back in Game 5, but certainly Game 4, Game 3, both games in Milwaukee. But he played well in Boston too. But he was really, in those games in Milwaukee, the crucial piece. And arguably, if you believe I don't want to get you started now, but
we'll give the listeners at least 5 minutes of there's no way I'm going to keep it together tonight.
I'm going to pull it back now just so we stay it off a little bit, just for a little bit longer. But the last 2 minutes thing where we find out where, he got hit on the arm and should have been, arguably that would have been the go ahead basket and might very well have led the Celtics to a win there on Sunday afternoon in Game 4. Tremendous. Just the step back threes, the strong finishes in the lane. He's so strong that even longer, strong players, Giannis, go into contact with Giannis and still get a decent shot off. So many good opportunities for him in Milwaukee in Games 3 and 4. Tatum had a great, 16 points there in the quarter. It was fabulous, but it wasn't enough. The team didn't play, I think, well enough. I don't think they had enough players. But in Game 5, Marcus Smart. 5 months almost to the day of his hand surgery. He's back, comes in, and I think you could very easily say that he was the difference maker that led the Celtics to a win today. He didn't score all the points. He didn't create every turnover. But he did everything in his power to make this game one that ended up in the Celtics column. And you could feel a palpable difference in how the Celtics were playing, how the Milwaukee Bucks were responding, and just how that entire game was proceeding by whether he was in the game or out of the game.
Well, he's a physical player.
He is a physical player. And Joe Prunty before the game said, we're not preparing to play Marcus Smart. That they know he's coming. They need to be prepared for it. You can't prepare for Marcus Smart. That guy, as Sam Sheehan was saying to me on Twitter today, he is the definition of chaos. You cannot prepare for what hell he hath wrought on your team. You just simply have to hope it's not as bad as it's going to be, because Marcus is going to bring the pain, and he brought the pain in Game 5.
Yeah, Marcus is the kind of guy who brings the pain to himself too. Like, he's just
Absolutely
surrounded by pain. And you're right. You and Sam are both right. You definitely can't contain that or prepare for it, because it's chaotic. It's unpredictable. It's not precision. It's just total energy and physicality. And he was very physical in this game. It is something that the team needed to find, was that physical identity, especially. And, again, we'll stave off my tirade for a little bit longer, but the way that the Bucks have been playing them, the officials have allowed for a more physical game at least for one team, it has seemed so far. But all I'll say, I'm really containing myself, John.
You're doing well. You're
I'm
doing
trying.
great. Keep it up.
I'm trying.
Keep it up.
So, but Marcus brought that physicality. They needed it. And if anything, to your point about not having enough players, we know where the depth is really lacking, and it's in the backcourt. It's Terry Rozier is actually, and I think in many cases we've seen it, been asked to just do too much and too many minutes. And so this is going to give him a reprieve. I think we'll see a little bit of a resurgence from Terry Rozier moving forward, just because it does allow him to, I don't want to say take a step back, but just think about how much ball handling responsibility he's had to assume over the tail end of the season and then into the first 5 games of this season, or first 4, and now Marcus is back. It's going to give him a huge lift, the team on the whole, I mean, but it's also going to help Terry quite a bit. And so that was much needed. It's great to see Marcus back. And unfortunately, the one thing that's not great to see back is the debate about who do you keep, Rozier or Smart. I'd like to save that for the offseason at this point.
Yeah, I think we have to. But that's a great point. I hadn't really thought of it, but the burden that Rozier has been carrying for the last 6 weeks is tremendous. I mean, he's doing things that he shouldn't be expected to do at this point in time. Carry a playoff team, with no other really, anybody else to help you. And it's crazy. And he's done it well. He did it well in the first 2 games, less so in the 2 games in Milwaukee. Let's hope that this is the extra little lift he needs. I think part of it too is there's been a lot of talk about, okay, how do you keep the offense going? And the Celtics offense has not, exactly been, he's being asked to do everything. And he's not everything right now. He's great at scoring. He's great at, finishing and hitting his threes and I shouldn't say great at finishing, but he's great at creating offense. He's great at creating offense, particularly for himself. He hasn't really figured out that next level passing gene that clearly Smart has. And by Smart coming in there, you could see the ball was moving a little bit better. It was creating opportunities for a lot of different players. I think
look at the box score at halftime. It was like 6 to 8 points, or 5 to 8 points for like 9 players. So the ball movement was clear, even just looking statistically. So you're absolutely right. It bore itself out as you looked at the box score for this game as well.
Yeah, and Smart ends up, if you look at his box score, 24 minutes, okay, that's, 9 points, that's decent. 28% shooting, that's what he does, sure. But 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, a steal. I mean, there aren't many columns there that have a 0 in them, He did have 5 turnovers. Look, that's
another box without a 0.
Filling it up.
So
exactly.
Funny.
Yeah.
He does fill it up. I'm just waiting for his first triple double with turnovers, but it'll never happen. But it's sort of tongue in cheek there. But still, you're right. He's all over the floor in many different ways, but really, it's that energy lift that I think the team needed. It needed that muscle and hustle, and they got it.
Well, and that's kind of goes to the Terry Rozier thing. So there's sort of a double foul, but basically a flagrant on Bledsoe and a foul on Rozier, technical foul on Rozier, early part of the third quarter, which comes just minutes after really what should have been, I thought, a flagrant on Thon Maker. They don't call that, so it's kind of like, it seems like the Bucks kind of have it in for Boston. They're trying to bring their machismo, I suppose, to them. We saw it at the end there. Giannis kind of trying to tap the ball away from Horford. Horford kind of give him a stare down. The Celtics don't really they have not taken those kind of cheap shots. They've not tried to push in those ways. Mook Morris, I thought really he had, some good games early on, but really has not been effective in that way. Has not been, he's been chirping with the refs in the post game, but not much, in terms of being physical.
They're being smart. I'll be honest with you though. I think they're being smart in that regard. Is so easy. The way that these games have been officiated. Think about, I'm not quite going to go. I'm just setting the table. I'm really trying to stay calm here. But the way that they've been officiated, they're very lucky that they haven't lost control of this series to the point where there's a fight on the floor. It's so bad. And, if this game had taken place in the Palace between Indiana and Detroit, what would be happening right now. And that's, I'm going to commend the Celtics on one hand, and I'm also going to blast them on another. And, you kind of gave them that criticism, like, you got to punch back. But
Right.
I said a quarter and a half into game 2 before I turned the damn game off that it would be a miracle if Marcus Morris didn't throw a punch before this series was over. And he hasn't. And so that's where I'm going to give them a lot of props. And, Marcus Smart, had he played since game 1, probably would have had an ejection by now. And, but it is sort of sad that they didn't fight back the same way that it was being dealt to them. And in that regard, they kind of bear some of the responsibility, because part of me is feeling like maybe things would have gotten under control if the refs realized just how close they were to losing control of the game. And then there's this other side of me that's going to put on old friend Jim Metz's tinfoil hat. We'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to say you can follow Celtics Stuff Live on Twitter at CSL_tweet live. You can follow me. Hopefully you weren't on Sunday. I'm at CSL_Justin. Jon is at CSL_Duke. And the entire CLNS Media Network at CLNS Media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/CLNS fans, and download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace. And of course, youtube.com/CLNS Media for high definition, full length locker room interviews and the Garden Report, the Round Table, on and on and on, and a 5-minute snippet from this show, which I am most certainly expecting to be what is about to happen, which is my absolutely furious explosion against the NBA. And Jon, here's what bothers me. I did turn the game off 1.5 quarters into game 2. And there was no point in watching that game. It was clear the fix was in. Just the way it started. And I get it, You absolutely, when you're down in a series, you want to come out at home and you want to put that fight in. But Dellavedova got away with so much grabbing, so much pushing, so much hand-checking in the initial minutes of that game, and then it just extended out to the rest of that team. And yet the Celtics were getting called for ticky-tack fouls. It wasn't even good basketball, Jon. I couldn't watch it. And it wasn't because the Celtics were losing. It was because it was bad basketball. The ball, it was not even enjoyable to watch. Now, of course, no comeback in that game for the Celtics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go over to game 4. The Celtics get down big early. Now, this right here is where I put on my tinfoil hat. Diagram of an absolute sham scam on you NBA fans, and especially me, who I actually feel pretty ashamed. Part of the reason I'm so bitter about it is the fact that I haven't caught on to this, or didn't believe it, or turned a blind eye to it. For how long have we been doing this show, Jon? It's 2018? 15 years? 15 years maybe? Something like that?
Long time.
Long time. I've been watching longer than that. The fact that I didn't realize that the fix is in earlier is mind-numbing to me. Because, think about it. Just think about it, Jon. What happens in the final 5-6 minutes of the game, right? It takes almost an hour to play. There's constant timeouts. There's replays, blah, 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 blah. And what happens during that time? You get to watch more commercials than you ever imagined. Just follow the money here. If the series ended in 4 or 5 games, teams don't get home games. How do teams make money? They make money when games go 7. It's good for the team and the drama and the suspense and the narrative that the NBA wants to tell you. But then the other thing is, what do most casual fans do? They wait until those last 6 minutes of the game to watch. And the NBA has miraculously found an amazing way to extend those last 6 minutes with instant replay and, the way that the game ends. So they drag it out more and more and more every year. We talked to Mike Gorman about that last fall. And I mentioned that was one of my frustrations. And he agreed with us that the end of the game takes too long to finish. Well, guess what? That length of time is all about ads. So how do they get you to tune in at the end of the game, Jon? What's the best strategy? Well, they're not tuning in early, so give the casual fan permission not to watch. Stake a 20-point lead by calling an extremely uneven game. Let let the home team get way up, and then right around the middle of the third quarter, start planting those social media hooks to pull you back in. That's right. Hey, guess what? Celtics were down by 20 early. Now they're climbing back into the game. Oh, it's close. They've got it within 10. And slowly they pull you and they pull you back in right in time for, that's right, it's time for the commercial bonanza of excitement that you will experience at the end of the game. The last 6 minutes, that takes 45 minutes to finish. You will hear all about all the sponsors and advertisers. Follow the money. I feel duped, John. And I will tell you, I was sitting in the airport watching Game 4, and it's just happening all over again. And I couldn't take it. I walked away from the airport bar, and it didn't help that my flight was delayed 3 hours. Went and sat over by the terminal and basically blew up on Twitter. Barfed all over Twitter. And guys like Byron Solomon, our good friend, and old friend Mike Fay are like, and I was tweeting and texting back and forth with CLNS Media founder Nick Gelso. And they're all like, oh, your boy Jalen's going off. And honestly, John, I missed it. I didn't watch it. I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. I was not going to succumb to the fix. And I know I sound like Mike Munger. I know I sound like a Tim Donaghy apologist. I know, it's like harkening back to the days of JB and the conspiracy theory around the refs. But my whole line on this show, for all these years, back when we used to do a live show and Mike used to call in, I always said, listen, the officials do not influence the outcome of the game. I'm still going to stand by that. They don't influence the outcome of the game as much as they influence the narrative of the game and the tone and how best to manufacture drama at the end and take as many series to 7 as possible. And quite frankly, I get it. But I feel duped now because I don't feel like I'm watching a real product anymore.
I don't even know where to take that.
I think that was a 6-minute straight diatribe.
It was a diatribe. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know if I'm ready to go how far with the conspiracy. I will say this. I think that the officiating in the Celtics series has been horrendous. Games 1
like
through
the worst
5.
you've ever seen, right? The worst you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is we've had a show after Game 7 of 2010 Finals, which was still probably the single most painful sports memory I can think of right now. That was as hard to take. Well, not even Perk. Joey Crawford. I mean, Joey Crawford basically.
Of course, but he fouled out. That's what I'm saying.
Gifting that series effectively to the Lakers in how he called that game. And we've seen it over and over and over again in the course of history, and how the NBA officials, set a standard and then choose to break that standard over and over and over again. I think in this series, they're letting the Bucks be as physical as they want to be with the Celtics. And we've already seen Mook Morris has gotten slapped for it. Horford has said not much, but more than Al Horford usually would say about these things. And we've got a lot of young guys who are not going to get the calls because they're young guys. But it certainly seems as though there's a lot of young guys on the Bucks that are getting the benefit of the doubt, and the Celtics are not. So I can chalk it up as the Celtics are not getting the calls, the Bucks are. I can chalk it up as it's just bad officiating. I think both things can be true.
It's so blatant, though.
It's awful.
It's so blatant.
It should be better than that.
These are not ticky-tacky, questionable, I'm not so sure. This is clutching, grabbing, and hand-checking to the chest.
Yeah.
This isn't hand-checking, on the arms and whatever. It's going right for the, I don't want to say right for the heart, but yeah, basically, that, the center of their chest, the chest bone, whatever it's called that I can't think of. They're just jamming them right there. And I'm sorry, but, there are times where, well, look at the foul they called against Terry Rozier when he clearly knocked the ball loose in the fourth quarter of Game 5, right? And they blow the whistle on that. He's not pushing into the body. I mean, at best case scenario, it was a foul because he hit the player's hand, but the hand is part of the ball. It's not like taking your hand to the ball handler and jamming them up into their body. There's reaching in fouls. How many over the backs did you see in the first quarter of Game 1 on rebounds? I'm like, you cannot allow them. There's a reason to have a foul called over the back. And numerous times, players going way over the back and not being called as the Bucks. And look, I hate this whole conversation because it makes me sound whiny and homeristic and etc. But it's flipping out of control, and I don't care. They can call it both ways. I'm not saying the Celtics haven't gotten away with a couple of calls. Of course they have. It's that badly officiated. But overall, the officials needed to tighten up on the physical contact to some degree. A physical series, I understand. That's kind of like 90s basketball. And there are elements of that I enjoy. But call it consistently, and, you have to draw a little bit better line than they have.
Well,
a lot better line.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think physical play is fine. Physical play that's called consistently is better. And I don't think what we're getting right now. I feel like what we're getting right now is
a manufactured way for Milwaukee to compete in this series when they clearly were going to get their asses handed to them. I mean, I know the first game was close. Middleton hit that shot and it went into overtime, blah, blah, blah. But the way that Game 2 went, it was getting pretty clear that the Celtics were establishing some serious dominance.
I agree with that. And I think that they went to Milwaukee in Game 3 and they had less of a chance to compete in that game than they should have. I'll say that. How do you like that? I thought Game 3 was one.
Wait, hold on. What's your day job? Are you a politician?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, in Game 4, there were obviously some calls at the end there but the Celtics, we'll go to this and then we'll kind of shift it to look ahead to Game 6. But, I think that the Game 5, the problems to this point have been that Milwaukee has brought more energy and more aggression to the game, particularly in Games 3, 4. They were the more aggressive team clearly in those two games. They played off of the crowd, but I think also the officials were impacted by the crowd in Milwaukee. I think that they were impacted to a really great degree, and you can't let that happen. And I think they've been the more aggressive team all the entire time, but in Games 3 and 4 in particular, that aggression was amped to another level. And Dellavedova probably most notably, and probably Thon Maker too, but Dellavedova in particular.
But Thon made some good plays too. I mean, he's a little reckless and he got away with a lot. But there were also some plays where you kind of said, hey, you know what, hats off to him. Like there was a block that was really exceptional that you have to say, he came out and intended to influence the game. But again, a younger player getting the benefit of some calls. I mean, he was as guilty as anybody is going over the back.
But I feel like, yes, but I think that in terms of the intensity and the aggression, Dellavedova is the one that keyed that as much as anybody. I mean,
100% from the beginning.
Maker was aggressive, overly aggressive, arguably, and I thought they should have used that against him. But it was Dellavedova and his stretches there to start the game really changed the whole pace of Game 3 and Game 4 too. I mean, I think that's kind of waned a bit now, particularly in Game 5. He was effectively a non-factor, I thought. So we'll see what happens in Game 6 when they go back home. The other thing is like, look, these are two teams with a lot of young players. They're going to play a lot better with the home crowd and a lot worse in front of somebody else. So if things go to form,
that's just not true.
That's exactly going to happen.
As soon as the officials started forcing, or actually what really happened in game 4 was Milwaukee thought they had it in the bag, so they stopped fouling the crap out of the Celtics, and then all of a sudden the floor opened up and they did perform. I'm sorry, but it's the way that the game is called is the reason that the Celtics young players weren't performing on the road. When you can't get separation because they get to grab and hold on to you while you move laterally, you're never going to be able to make plays. You're not going to be able to run pick and rolls. When you can't move on the floor because you literally can't get free from the player that's guarding you because they are legally contacting you consistently over and over and throughout all motion on the offense, there's not much to be done about that. You basically ride the tide. Now, we're going to tell you about a couple of sponsors, and then we'll come back. We'll preview Game 6. We'll move on from my diatribe. I won't bring it up again, but I will let you know.
Until next show.
I've missed 2 full games of basketball because I just can't tolerate it. It's frustrating me that much. But it's a good thing because we have a couple of sponsors, so they've keeping me in the game, John. They're keeping me in the game. We have obligations. So if you wear contacts, then you know how annoying it is to have to get a prescription year after year just to be able to buy more contacts, especially when there's savings to be had online. So Simple Contacts is changing all of that by using technology to make renewing your prescription and buying contacts, well, simple. And here's how it works. Using your phone or your computer, you can take the Simple Contacts vision test in 5 minutes, literally anywhere. You're just using the camera on your phone or your laptop, and a real doctor is going to review your test results within 24 hours, and they write you a new prescription. Boom! A fresh supply of brand new lenses on the way to your door. No more appointments, no more waiting rooms, no more overpaying. Simple Contacts brings the doctor's office to wherever you are, whenever you need it. I had an amazing experience. This went super quick for me. I have considered buying contact lenses online in the past, but the truth is, to take advantage of that savings, I've had to go to the doctor's office to get a new prescription to do it. It just never made sense for me, but Simple Contacts has made it make sense, and I got really nice contacts within just a couple of days. It was really beautiful because I always wait till the last minute. If you're like me and you're a procrastinator, then this is your service. Simple Contacts offers every brand of lenses. Their prices are truly unbeatable. The prescription is just $20, and then the contact lenses are super competitive price-wise. Shipping is free, and best of all, as a listener of our show, you will get $30 off your first contacts order with Simple Contacts. To save that $30 on your lenses, just go to simplecontacts.com/CSL18 or enter the code CSL18 at the checkout. I do want to mention, though, that this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need those occasionally, but it is the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed. So again, check out Simple Contacts. Get $30 off your first order by going to simplecontacts.com/CSL18 or just enter the code CSL18 at checkout. Give it a try. Thank me later. And for hymns, listen up, fellas. 66% of men begin losing their hair by age 35 and choose not to do anything about it until it's too late. However, it's a whole lot easier to keep the hair you have than to replace the hair you've lost. So if you started to notice that receding hairline, or maybe you're like me and your son finally spoiled the secret that you couldn't see on your own, that's right, the bald spot hiding in the back. Why is it that we do nothing when we can turn to medicine and science? Here's your chance. Our listeners get a trial month of hymns for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last. So see the website for full details. Go to 4hymns.com/CSL2017. This would cost hundreds of dollars if you went to the doctor or pharmacy. So go to 4hymns.com/CSL2017 today. All right, John, what's your predictions for Game 6? Because I'm just going to tell you right now, the pessimist in me is saying same old baloney on the roadie, and then we come back for Game 7 at home, and all the teams win because that's the most games at home. They sell the tickets. They make the bling-bling.
I think the Celtics are going to win Game 6. I think they win Game 6. I think the reason why I think you're right. Looking at in terms of the play of what I saw tonight, if you figure a 10% increase in the productivity of your average Buck player, and you figure the Celtics are going to take a little bit of a step back without, Smart being kind of the adrenaline of that happening, you would think, okay, well, that's more than enough for the Bucks to pull out a win in Game 6. I just feel like, and this is kind of a trend, it seems like, with the Celtics team, probably they shouldn't win. They probably shouldn't win Game 6. I just think they're going to. I think they're the better team. I felt like both of the games in Milwaukee, they should have played a lot better and didn't. And you got to feel at some point they're going to put that together. They were a better team on the road all year than they were at home. So I feel like this is the time when they're going to finally put it together. Smart being back, it unlocks so many things for this team. Offensively, defensively, it creates some mismatches. It should allow them to play the way they want to. And I thought they did for the large part of Game 5. The question is, are we going to see Jaylen Brown at the 11, 12, 13-point level and the Jaylen Brown or the Jason Tatum are in that same ballpark? Are they going to be in the upper teens like we saw in Games 3 and 4? That's kind of the difference. I mean, if you get them playing at that capacity, the Celtics can win those games. I think the other person that I think is a key person, this is Mook Morris. I thought after the first 2 games, he really has not been as effective as they've needed him to be. He was okay. He obviously had a nice bucket there near the end in crunch time, but they need more out of him right now. I mean, he was a key player for them, as was Rozier in those kind of last 6 weeks of the regular season once everyone went down. They need him playing at a higher level. And it seems like when those bench units are coming in, both he and Larkin and, that group really has struggled. The start of second quarters, start of the fourth quarters have really been bad times for the Celtics here throughout this series. They need to have those guys playing at a higher level. And Mook in particular, he needs to be the veteran force that kind of stabilizes and keeps things going when the Milwaukee crowd is going nuts. So they need him stepping up, but I'm just thankful no more Bucks in 6. I don't have to hear that anymore. It's all Celts in 6. That's what it should be. I want to see him close it out, and I want to move on to a Philly-Boston series, which will probably be as bloody as the Revolutionary War on Twitter.
You know what? I'm down with that. That might be the series that pulls me back in. I've been eyeballing it. Of all the matchups in the postseason, other than a finals matchup with anybody, it's the one that I've desired the most. And, partly it's because I'm in that Philadelphia market. I got neighbors who are 76ers fans, but also just because the team was such an underdog. I mean, look at the way they started the year. And, you've got this youth movement battle. I think it'll be interesting to see how the calls go in that series. You're right. It will be as bloody as the Revolutionary War. But I will also say the Celtics will be ready for it, right? Because they've had to put up with this baloney as long as they have. I think they'll have a little bit better ability to punch back. I think what I'm interested in seeing in Game 6 is the Marcus Smart lift going to take another step up? Or does it tail off a little bit on the rest of the players, like especially on the road when they need it? I think that's what I'm eyeballing the most. But I still stand by my prediction. I think Game 6 is more of the same. I think they want this to go 7. And think about it, John. Like, the Eastern Conference is a yawner of a postseason, right? I mean, most people looking at it going, the weak East again, right? As soon as we had all the injuries and stuff like that, and then Cleveland really kind of tailing off, like, will they make it exciting by the time we get around to the Eastern Conference Finals? Sure they will. But they need people tuning in sooner than that. They need people in the seats sooner than that. And so, again, manufacturing the drama that's necessary to get interest in a weak Eastern Conference in the postseason.
I don't necessarily agree, because you do have 2 other series that are tied up 2-2, so I think they can afford to have.
Are you watching them?
Yeah, I've been on vacation, so I haven't watched much of anything, but when I have been at a TV, I've been watching. Yeah, do I really want to see? I'm interested as a Celtics fan to see how those other series play out, as opposed to I love basketball and I want to watch it all. I'm watching them selfishly for my own team's reasons. So I'm probably not the target audience. I think the issue, to me, it's about, though, can they afford to do it? Can they afford to have one less team playing? I mean, it probably actually eases up their ability to get all the right teams and games in the right situations. They want to be able to have 2 games a night, every night at least, forever. And if the Celtics aren't in that rotation, then that actually may make things a little bit easier in terms of how they shuffle when Game 7s and Game 6s are coming up this weekend. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Well, I think that there are reasons that they could do it, and I think the money is a good one, but they've got a lot of tight series right now in the East. The West, less so. You got both of them. You got Game 5s tomorrow that are, or I guess Wednesday, I should say, Wednesday that could be all done. And you've got, a 3-1 that's playing as we're recording this, that could very well be wrapped up. So,
I'd be really interested to see the ratings out in the West, because I kind of feel I bet the draw is still there even with the series lopsided.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's still very much a local thing in those cities that aren't. And also remember, you do have a lot of these series, though there's a national element. They still are allowing local broadcasts too, so the ratings are a little bit skewed, I think, because of that. If you're a Celtics fan, you're certainly not going to watch the ESPN or the TNT version of this. If you have a choice, you're gonna watch Tommy and Mike, right? There's no question. So
just for the validation that Mike gave me at the end of Game 5, where he's saying the coach is telling them to hit him, and they are, and the officials are letting them get away with it. I needed somebody else to say it, other than a player who's clearly frustrated. But I think we're all on the same page there. I guess the only difference, John, is that you don't think that there's intent there. You think that the officials, with all this experience over all of these years, have just allowed this to happen with no direction from the league office.
No. I mean, I've always said I thought that could be the case. I'm not.
So where's the step from that statement to
I don't know.
My conspiracy theory? Because they sound the same to me.
I gotta be honest. I'm not thinking conspiracies. I'm just thinking about what's going on. And, there are plays that impact the game. No doubt about it. I
don't think they care about the outcome as much as they care about it being close at the end.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess if that's the case, though, what the hell are we all doing talking about it? Because there's no
bingo.
Point in any of it.
You just nailed it. That's where I've been since Sunday. Like, if the fix is in, it's frustrating to comment and watch, right? Because then it's like, oh, I could have predicted that.
Jeez. Yeah, I suppose that's true.
I'm disillusioned, bro. It's gonna take
no
me
doubt.
A while. It's gonna take me a while because I really, yeah. All right. So game 6, you think they take it? Yes. So who's the star in Milwaukee then? Is it Smart? You kind of pointed the finger at Brown and Tatum and said, are they going to be the guys to push the points into the high teens? So if you're counting on them to do that, then maybe they're the star. Maybe Terry Rozier, who had a decent Game 5, now that he's had a little bit of that burden lifted, and maybe you're looking to him. Maybe you're going to say it's Horford, who's gotten I guess for him getting a little bit snippier, a little bit, more assertive. Where's your call here?
You named a number of good candidates. I think Al Horford is the guy, though. I think he's the one, the difference maker that really I don't think Milwaukee's ever found an answer for. I think the issue that Milwaukee has posed to the Celtics, the issue that they've kind of created for them is stopping the Celtics ball movement and stopping their ability to get the ball where it needs to be. I feel like with Smart's inclusion, they're going to get that ball to Horford a little bit more. They're going to look to get him in scoring opportunities. And I think that that's going to pay a lot of dividends for the Celtics. I just don't see that really Milwaukee has an answer. If they want to throw a big guy at him, as we saw in the Chicago series when they threw Lopez at him, there was a counter to that, just spread it out more, go smaller. If they do that, I don't know what the counter is. Do you put Giannis on him? That seems to me not a good situation. Not to say that Giannis can't slow him down, but it just, to me, it takes them out of some good matchups that they can have, and I think they're better served by having him playing on a power forward. Although to Semi Ojeley's credit, he kind of slowed that down here in Game 5. I just think Horford's the guy, and that's not to say that any of those other players that you mentioned aren't capable of being that star. I'd add Mook Morris as a guy who really has not showed up very strongly for the Celtics here in the latter half of this playoff against the Bucks. Maybe that's the time he finally steps up, has a good 20-point game, and kind of is that extra guy that they've needed and haven't gotten to this point. They'll put them over the top. They need somebody, though. They need somebody to step up.
What about a guy like Monroe in the middle? Are you disappointed he hasn't kind of owned that a little bit? I feel like his minutes have been decreasing.
Well, I think it's matchup based. I think the Celtics are clearly choosing to go smaller against the Bucks, and that's taken Monroe out of it. I mean, Brad tried to go with two bigs. We talked about it in the last show. He even tried to go with Baines and Monroe a bit. It just isn't working. I mean, they need to spread them out. They don't have enough offense. So without the shooting and without the scoring,
that's John, you've gotten a little choppy, so I think that's going to be the end of the episode today. But it's a good point, and we'll definitely discuss it again on our next show when this series should be wrapped up, and then they'll be facing the Philadelphia 76ers, hopefully. That's what we'd like to see, and I think that can definitely happen. This broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in, and remember that you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review because your feedback is important to the show. And for staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, and the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtic Stuff Live.
Celtic Stuff Live.